The wail of sirens sliced through the night air, screaming past the tall gates of Chief Alfred's mansion. Red and blue lights flashed against the compound walls as the police vans rolled in, cutting across the silence like sharp knives. Inside the house, everything was in chaos. 2 housemaids stood by the staircase, their hands trembling as they watched the officers storm in. One clutched her wrapper to her chest, her eyes wide. The other whispered, "God have mercy." But her voice broke off when she saw the stretcher being brought out. Chief Alfred's lifeless body was lying in the study. A sharp stab wound marked the middle of his chest, blood soaking the floor beneath him. His eyes were open, unmoving. A senior officer walked in, followed closely by Pascal and Margaret. Pascal stood still, frozen. His voice was quiet, shaking. How did this happen? Margaret, Chief Alfred's wife, pressed a cloth to her lips, but she said nothing. The officer moved straight to the small control room beside the study. "Check the CCTV footage." One of the junior officers played the tape. It showed Chief Alfred walking into his study at 9:42 p.m. At 9:47, Christian entered after him. They watched. Minutes passed. Then the footage went dark. The officer paused the video. "That's it?" "That's the last clear image," the technician replied. No one else was seen going in or coming out before the body was found. "Where is Christian?" the officer asked. Pascal turned to the stairs. "He should be upstairs. I think he's in his room." The lead officer gave a sharp nod. "Get him." The housemaids shrank back as footsteps thundered up the stairs. Within minutes, Christian's door was flung open. He came out in a loose shirt and joggers, hair tousled from sleep. "What's going on?" he asked, looking around in confusion. The officer stepped forward. "Christian, you are under arrest for the murder of Chief Alfred." Christian blinked. What did you say?" "You're under arrest," the officer repeated, pulling out a pair of cuffs. Christian stepped back. "No, wait, there must be a mistake. My father. Chief, he's dead." Margaret's voice rang out from the hallway behind them, cold, sharp. "Stop pretending. You were the last person with him. You ungrateful child." Christian turned to her, hurt flashing in his eyes. "Mummy, I would never hurt my father." "Oh, save the lies," she snapped. "You have always been bitter towards him." The officers pulled Christian's arms behind his back and cuffed him. The maids gasped. One covered her mouth, the other turned away, whispering prayers under her breath. Pascal stood quietly, his hands at his sides, eyes unreadable. Christian looked from face to face, panic growing in his chest. "Please, I didn't kill him, I swear. He called me to talk. He said he had something to tell me tonight, something important." "No more talking," the officer said. "You can explain yourself at the station." They dragged him down the stairs. Past the staring maids. Past the cold marble pillars of the mansion he had once called home. As the van door slammed behind him, Christian pressed his head to the cool metal and whispered, "I didn't do it, Daddy, I swear." Back at the mansion, Margaret sat on the sofa in the sitting room, her hand trembling. Pascal sat beside her, holding her close, his face unreadable. Margaret turned to face her son. How could Christian have done this after everything Chief had done for him? That boy is really ungrateful. Pascal said nothing. He simply stood up and went upstairs, leaving Margaret alone. The next morning, the air inside Alfred and Son's company was stiff and uneasy. Whispers floated from desk to desk. Phones buzzed quietly. Nobody spoke above a whisper. Helen stepped into the office carrying her laptop bag. She noticed the strange atmosphere immediately. "Why is everyone so quiet?" she asked Anita, her colleague and close friend. Anita gave her a strange look. "You haven't heard?" "Heard what?" Helen's heart thumped. "Chief Alfred is dead," Anita said softly. "Murdered. Last night." Helen's hand flew to her mouth. "No. And—" Anita hesitated. "They arrested Christian." Helen froze. "What?" "They said the CCTV showed he was the last person with Chief before he died." "No," Helen said. "That can't be right. Christian would never. He loved his father so much. He worships the ground Chief walks on. He can't do that. Anita shrugged. That's what they're saying. The police took him in last night. It's all over the news. Helen didn't wait to hear more. She turned around and walked straight to her office. She closed the door behind her, dropped her laptop bag on the table and sat down, her heart pounding. Something wasn't right. She could feel it. Christian hadn't killed Chief Alfred. She knew him. She had worked with him, watched him, admired him, and she would not believe that he was the murderer. By noon, the staff gathered in the conference hall, each person silently wondering what would happen next. Murmurs floated in the air, thick with fear and curiosity. "Do you think it's true?" someone whispered. "They say Christian did it." "No way. He's not that kind of person." "But the police arrested him." "Still, doesn't mean he did it." Helen sat near the back, arms crossed tightly. Her eyes stared ahead, unblinking. Her mind kept replaying the news over and over. Then the door opened. Pascal walked in. He was dressed in black, his eyes red but dry. He moved with slow, measured steps, like someone used to attention. Behind him followed 2 senior board members. Everyone stood. Pascal raised his hand. "Please, sit down." They obeyed. The room fell quiet again. Pascal took the stage and looked around the room. His voice was low but firm. "As you all know, we are passing through a very dark and painful moment. My father, our beloved chairman, Chief Alfred, was found dead last night in his study. This has shaken not only our family but this company as well." Murmurs broke out again, but Pascal waited. He continued, "I know some of you have heard that my brother, Christian, was arrested by the police. I want to make it clear, the investigation is still ongoing. We must allow the authorities to do their job." He paused, letting the words sink in. "If anyone here knows anything, no matter how small, please speak to the authorities. My father did not deserve this, and I promise you, whoever is responsible for his death will be punished severely." Some staff nodded in agreement. Pascal glanced at the board members behind him. "While we wait for justice, this company must not fall apart. In my father's absence, I will be stepping in as acting chairman. He trusted me with this responsibility, and I intend to carry it out with honor." A few people murmured, others remained still. Pascal gave a small nod. "Thank you. You may return to work." The meeting ended. Slowly, people began to rise from their seats, talking in low tones. Some said Pascal had spoken well, others looked unsure. Helen didn't move. She kept her eyes locked on Pascal. He smiled and shook hands with one of the directors. He patted someone's back. He acted calm, in control. But something about him didn't feel right. Helen leaned toward Anita, who sat beside her. "Did you notice anything strange?" Anita frowned. "Strange how?" "He didn't even mention Christian's name with any concern. Not even once. That's his brother." Anita shrugged. "Maybe he's still in shock." "No," Helen whispered. "That wasn't shock. That was a performance." Anita gave her a confused look. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying something feels off." Pascal walked past them then, heading for the exit. For a split second, his eyes met Helen's. She smiled politely. He smiled back. But behind that smile, she saw something cold, something dangerous. She stood up quietly. "I need to find out what happened." Anita reached for her hand. "Helen, I know how much Christian means to you, but please be careful." "I will. I'm not going to sit around while he rots in jail." Helen left the hall with a plan forming in her mind. She would dig into Pascal's past, his movements, his records, everything. Because deep down, something told her Pascal wasn't just grieving. He was hiding something, and she was going to find it. Many years ago, Chief Alfred and his wife Margaret had everything money could buy. A mansion that stretched wider than most people's dreams, cars, land, jewelry, and servants. Their business grew like a strong tree, branches reaching high into the sky. But one thing was missing: A child. They waited, and waited, and waited. 10 long years passed with no cry of a baby in their home. Margaret grew bitter. Alfred grew quiet. People whispered. Some said it was a curse. Others blamed Margaret. But Alfred stayed by her side. "I don't care what they say," he would tell her gently. "I didn't marry you for children. I married you for love." But Margaret did care. Deeply. Every naming ceremony she attended ended with silent tears at night. Every baby she held reminded her of what she didn't have. Until one rainy night, something changed. A call came from the hospital. A baby boy. No name. No mother. Left alone at the gate. They said the child was healthy. He needed a home. Alfred didn't hesitate. He held the baby in his arms and smiled like the sun had risen inside his chest. "His name will be Christian," he said. Margaret was quiet at first, unsure. But when she saw the baby yawn and wrap his tiny hand around her finger, something softened in her heart. They took him home, raised him, loved him. Christian grew strong. He had Alfred's eyes and Margaret's nose, or so they told people. To the world, he was their own. Alfred taught him how to read, how to knot a tie, how to sit at meetings quietly and listen with respect. They travelled together, ate together, prayed together. He was their son, until everything changed. 4 years later, Margaret felt a strange pain in her belly. She visited the doctor, expecting nothing new. But the doctor smiled. "Congratulations, madam, you are with child." Tears rolled down her cheeks. This time not out of sadness, but joy. When Pascal was born, the house lit up like never before. There were drums, food, dancers, and fireworks. Pascal was the miracle child, the one they thought would never come. At first, Christian didn't understand what was happening. He was only 4. He ran to his mother one day with a drawing. "Mummy, look what I made." But Margaret barely glanced at it. Later, Christian. "Can't you see I'm feeding Pascal?" It didn't happen all at once. It came slowly, like a candle losing its flame. Margaret stopped tucking Christian into bed, stopped helping with his homework, stopped calling him my son. She became cold, sharp, distant. "You're no longer a baby Christian. You have a younger brother now, so act like it," she would say. Only Alfred remained the same. He still called Christian into his study every evening. "How was school?" he would ask, pouring him a glass of juice. "Any bullies I need to beat up?" They would laugh and talk for hours. Alfred took him to the office often, taught him about business, showed him how things worked. He never introduced Christian as adopted. He was simply my son. Pascal grew up spoilt. He had his mother's heart from the very first cry. She gave him everything he asked for, expensive toys, special treatment. But Alfred kept both boys close. He made sure Christian never felt small. "You are my first son," he once told him in private, "and you're just as important to me as Pascal." Christian beamed with pride. But Margaret heard those words one day, by mistake, and something inside her turned bitter again. She didn't argue with Alfred. She didn't shout. But from that day on, she made it her mission to push Christian further away. She told the maids to stop treating him like a king. She told the teachers at school not to give him special attention. She reminded him, quietly, when no one else could hear, "You're just a child who got lucky." Still, Christian loved her. He didn't know why she had changed. He didn't know he was adopted. No one had ever told him. He thought maybe he had done something wrong. Maybe he wasn't trying hard enough. But no matter what he did, the warmth from Margaret never returned. Only Alfred stayed the same, kind, present, proud. And that was what hurt Margaret the most. Because in Alfred's eyes she could see that no matter how many sons she gave him by blood, he had already chosen one with his heart. Christian and Pascal grew up under the same roof, but their worlds were different. From the outside, they looked like brothers, close in age, same school uniforms, same last name. But inside the house, their lives were not the same. As children, they played together sometimes. They shared toys, built blocks, chased each other in the backyard. Christian would laugh when Pascal fell and quickly help him up. "Be careful," he'd say, dusting his baby brother's knees. "You'll break your teeth one day." Pascal would giggle and wrap his arms around Christian. "You're the best big brother." Those were the days Christian thought they were truly family. But as they grew older, the differences became clearer. Pascal was loud, confident, and always ready to demand what he wanted. If he cried, Margaret came running. If he broke something, someone else was blamed. Christian, on the other hand, learned to stay quiet. He didn't ask for much. He read books in corners and helped the housemaids carry groceries. He became used to hearing, "Not now, Christian," and "Let Pascal go first." One day during breakfast, Pascal knocked over a glass of juice. "Christian, look what you made your brother do," Margaret snapped. Christian blinked, confused. "But I didn't." "Clean it up," she said, already wiping Pascal's mouth with a napkin. "Next time, be more careful." Christian said nothing. He simply picked up the pieces. Chief Alfred noticed these little things. But he chose silence too, for peace. Sometimes he would call Christian to his study and say softly, "Don't worry, son, I see you. You're doing well. I'm proud of you." Those words became Christian's shield. In school, Pascal was the popular one. He had the newest phone, the flashiest shoes. Everyone wanted to sit next to him. Christian was more reserved. He focused on his studies, joined the press club, and wrote quiet essays about loyalty and family. The teachers liked him. Some said he was wise beyond his years. But Pascal didn't like that. "You always want to be the smart one," he told Christian one day after class. "Trying to look better than me in front of Dad?" Christian frowned. "What are you talking about? We're on the same team." Pascal scoffed. "We're not the same." That was the beginning of the distance. At 18, Christian began going to the company with Alfred on weekends. Alfred would let him sit beside him during meetings, explain business terms, and quiz him on decisions. "You learn fast," Alfred would say, patting his back. "One day, this company will be in your hands." Christian smiled proudly, unaware that these words were knives in someone else's ears. Pascal grew jealous. Even Margaret noticed. "Why do you always take Christian with you?" she asked her husband one evening. "He's not the only child you have." "I take him because he shows interest," Alfred replied calmly. "Pascal prefers parties and games." "He's still young," she argued. "He'll grow into it." Alfred sighed. "I hope so." But Pascal never liked sharing attention, especially not with Christian. At home, Pascal often ignored Christian, mocked his books, and told visitors he was just a cousin. At first, Christian brushed it off. "He's joking," he would say, smiling weakly. "That's just how Pascal is." But it stung more each time. The turning point came the night of Christian's 20th birthday. Alfred threw a small dinner in his honour. Close friends, staff, a few family members. Everyone raised glasses. Toasts were made. Then Alfred stood up. "This young man," he said, placing a hand on Christian's shoulder, "has been more than a son to me. From the moment I held him, I knew he was special. He has never given me a reason to doubt his heart." The hall clapped. Margaret did not. Pascal sat stiffly, his smile thin. Alfred continued, "Christian, I'm proud of you. No matter what happens in this world, know that you are my son. In every way that matters." Christian tried to hold back tears. "Thank you, Dad," he whispered. But that night, after the guests had left, Christian found his bedroom door open, his books thrown across the floor, and one of his school awards torn in half. Pascal was never caught. Christian never said a word. He simply picked up his things and kept moving forward. Because deep down, he believed family meant forgiving, even when it hurt. But in another room, Pascal sat with his mother. Father love him more than me, he said bitterly. Margaret's eyes narrowed. That's because your father refuses to see the truth. What truth? That Christian doesn't belong here. Pascal looked at her. What do you mean? Margaret leaned closer. He's not your real brother. His eyes widened. He's adopted, she said. We took him in before you were born. He's not blood. Pascal sat back, stunned. He stole everything from you, Pascal, she whispered. Make sure you don't speak of this to anyone, not even Christian, but remember it's not too late to take it back. That night, something shifted. Pascal didn't see Christian as a brother anymore. He saw him as a threat. And slowly, quietly, he began to prepare for the day he would get rid of him. The dim light from the chandelier in the sitting room cast shadows on the walls as Margaret and Pascal sat across from each other, the tension in the room palpable. Pascal stared into his mother's eyes, his fingers drumming lightly on the edge of his glass. The weight of what she had said was settling in, but he couldn't quite bring himself to fully understand it. You need to take control of the family business, Pascal, Margaret said again, her voice cold but deliberate, like a woman laying the groundwork for something far more dangerous than just a conversation. She watched him carefully, waiting for him to grasp what she was telling him. Pascal shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing at the large portrait of Alfred hanging on the opposite wall. But I don't want to be involved with all that business stuff, Mum. I've never been interested in it. Margaret leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with a sharp, almost predatory focus. That's the problem, Pascal. You've never cared. And because of that, your father doesn't take you seriously. He's always seen Christian as the one who might take over. But Christian is not your brother, Pascal. He doesn't belong here. Margaret continued. Christian is a stranger, Pascal. You're the one with blood ties. Your father should be grooming you to take over, not some bastard. You need to change that. Pascal's heart pounded in his chest as he processed her words. So, what do you want me to do? Pascal asked quietly, as if the question had only just occurred to him. Margaret's gaze was icy, calculating. Get involved in the company. Show your father that he can count on you. Prove to him that you're ready to take on responsibility. Only then will he take you seriously. If you don't, he'll just continue to see Christian as the rightful heir. Pascal frowned. But I don't know anything about the business. I can't just walk in and pretend I do. Margaret's eyes flashed with impatience. You don't have to know everything. Learn, ask questions. Show your father you're interested, that you're capable. It's the only way to take your place in the family. If you make your father see you as the future of this company, Christian will be nothing more than a forgotten chapter. Pascal's mind raced. The idea seemed almost too simple, but there was something about his mother's words that made sense. Christian had always been the golden child in Alfred's eyes, the one he believed would carry on the business legacy. But that could change if Pascal played his cards right. What if Dad never takes me seriously? Pascal asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Margaret smiled, the smile of someone who had already planned the endgame. He will. But you have to show him that you're not just his son. You're capable of leading. You need to start proving yourself now, Pascal. Once you do, Christian will no longer be a threat. Once your father sees you as the successor, he'll see Christian for what he really is, a stranger. And when that happens, everything will be yours. Pascal's heart raced at the thought. He would no longer be in Christian's shadow. He would have everything his father had promised him, the power, the respect, the legacy. For the first time, he felt a surge of confidence. I'll do it, Pascal said, his voice firm. I'll make Dad see me for who I really am. I'll show him I'm ready. Margaret's smile widened, almost predatory. Good. That's the spirit. Remember, the family business is your birthright. Christian is nothing more than an obstacle. Pascal stood up, a new fire burning in his chest. He walked toward the window, staring out into the night, already plotting his next move. He would make Alfred see him. He would make him choose him, and not Christian. The company, the power, the legacy, they would all be his. And Christian? He would be nothing but a distant memory, just like his mother said. Pascal straightened his tie in front of the mirror, then turned to his mother, who stood by the doorway watching him. Margaret gave a small nod of approval. Remember confidence. Speak like you belong there. Walk like your name is already written on the door. Pascal inhaled deeply, adjusting the sleeves of his crisp white shirt. He's going to ask questions. Then give him answers, Margaret replied sharply. You've had me behind you all this time. Now it's time for you to stand in front. Today marks the beginning, Pascal. Do not forget why you're doing this. Pascal's eyes darkened. I won't. He left the house with purpose in his steps and a plan in his head. At the company, Alfred was seated behind his large mahogany desk, flipping through a file when Pascal walked in. The older man looked up, surprised. Pascal? Good morning, Dad, Pascal said, stepping closer. I thought maybe I could sit in today. I want to learn more about the company. Alfred's eyes searched his son's face. There was something new there. Seriousness, maybe even hunger. It was unexpected but not unwelcome. You want to learn? Alfred asked, setting his pen down. Pascal nodded quickly. Yes, I know I haven't shown much interest before, but I've been thinking, this company means everything to you, and I want to be part of that. Not just as your son, but as someone who contributes. A long silence passed between them. Then slowly Alfred leaned back in his chair and smiled. That's good to hear. He stood and motioned for Pascal to follow. Let's get to work. For the rest of the morning, Alfred took Pascal through the departments. He introduced him to key managers, explained some of the ongoing projects, and shared details of upcoming board meetings. Pascal listened attentively, nodding, asking questions where he could. His face remained neutral, but inside, he was carefully noting everything, every name, every figure, every plan. By noon, Christian arrived from a client meeting and was pleasantly surprised to find Pascal seated beside their father in the conference room. Pascal, he said, stepping in. Didn't expect to see you here. Pascal smiled just the right amount, trying to catch up. There's a lot I've missed. Christian chuckled and dropped his files on the table. That's great. You'll love the new projects we're working on. Want me to show you the construction model later? Sure, Pascal said with a nod. I'd like that. Alfred watched them with a calm, content expression. It does me good to see the two of you working together. I've waited years for this. Christian glanced at Pascal and smiled warmly. Well, better late than never. Pascal returned the smile, but his eyes held something deeper, something Christian missed. The next few days went by quickly. Pascal made it a point to arrive at the office before Christian. He stayed late with Alfred, even sat in on strategy meetings and spoke to the staff with quiet confidence. He was learning fast. One afternoon, Christian walked into Pascal's office holding a file. Thought this might help. It's our financial records from last quarter. Some parts are tricky, so I highlighted them. Pascal took the file and glanced up. Thanks. Christian hesitated. It means a lot to see you taking this seriously. I've always believed we could run this place together. Just never thought we'd actually get to. Pascal's jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his voice light. Well, maybe I just needed time. Christian laughed, clapping him lightly on the shoulder. You're doing great, Pascal. Really. Pascal forced a smile. Thanks, brother. Later that night, Pascal sat in his room, staring at the same file Christian had given him. The highlighted notes, the clean calculations, the careful analysis, it was clear Christian had been trained well. Alfred had made sure of that. He thought about his own progress. Yes, he was catching up, but Christian still held the edge. Christian was still ahead. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. The only way to eliminate him is from the inside. Pascal shut the file and leaned back, breathing slowly. For now, he would learn. He would smile. He would play the part. But the day was coming, soon, when playing nice would no longer be enough. Christian walked down the long hallway toward Alfred's study, a folder tucked under his arm. Laughter echoed behind him from the direction of the living room, Pascal and Alfred discussing something with ease and familiarity. It had become a common sound in the house these days. Pascal was blooming. That was the word Christian used to describe it. From someone who barely knew the difference between revenue and expenses, Pascal had grown into a serious contributor. He now joined in meetings, gave opinions, and even challenged decisions when he felt confident enough, and Alfred encouraged it. Christian should have felt proud. He did. Mostly. But something lingered in his chest. Something that scratched at him in quiet moments. He didn't understand it, so he ignored it. Christian smiled faintly and pushed the door open. "Dad?" Alfred looked up. "Christian, come in." Pascal turned, still smiling. "Hey, you just missed the funniest story about the last board retreat. Ask Dad." Christian chuckled as he stepped in. "Another one of his epic misadventures?" Pascal shrugged and grabbed his phone off the desk. "Anyway, I'll leave you too. I have that client call to make." He clapped Christian lightly on the back as he passed. "Catch you later." Christian gave a quick nod as Pascal exited, leaving the door ajar behind him. "Funny kid," Christian said, settling into the chair opposite Alfred's desk. "I'm really glad he's taking the company seriously now." Alfred nodded slowly, his smile lingering but less bright. "He's changing, yes, but time will tell." Then Alfred leaned forward. "Tell me, what do you think of Pascal's progress?" Christian blinked. "Pascal?" "Yes. His new attitude, his interest in the company. Do you think he's ready?" Christian gave a thoughtful nod. "He's trying. I think he just needed purpose. You know how it is. Some people don't blossom until they're handed a reason." Alfred smiled softly. That's true. Still, I want to be sure I'm making the right decision." Christian frowned slightly. "What decision?" Alfred looked up at him. "About the future." Christian hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Dad, whatever decision you make, I'll support it. You know that, right?" Alfred gave a slow nod. "Thank you, son." Pascal stood in the hallway, his back pressed lightly against the wall just out of sight. He hadn't gone far. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but he had paused the moment Christian walked in. Something made him stay. Something told him to listen. He caught most of it. Leadership, trust, decisions. And Christian's voice, steady, confident. Pascal's eyes narrowed. He walked away, silent and unreadable. Pascal stepped into the boardroom, his sleeves rolled up and a pen tucked behind his ear. Around the table, the senior managers sat with alert eyes, their laptops open, waiting. "Let's make this brief," Pascal said, his tone calm and steady. "Our Lagos branch is performing below projection. We need to cut losses, not just point fingers." Heads nodded. A few glanced at each other, surprised by how far Pascal had come. Just a few months ago, he had barely shown interest in any figures. Now he was standing tall at the head of the table, firm and confident. He flipped open his tablet. "I'll send out a new structure for the regional team, and I'll be in Lagos next week for an on-site review. Any objections?" None came. Pascal gave a tight smile. "Good, let's get back to work." He left the room as the managers exchanged murmurs. Some admired his new energy. Others remained unsure, especially the older ones who had worked closely with Alfred for years. Inside his office, Pascal shut the door behind him and leaned against it for a moment. The mask of confidence slipped slightly. He walked over to the shelf, picked up a framed photo, one taken years ago. Alfred stood between Pascal and Christian, one arm around each of them. He stared at it for a long moment. A knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said, placing the frame face down on the shelf. Margaret stepped in, dressed in her usual elegance, her perfume floating gently behind her. "You didn't tell me you were coming today," Pascal said. She smiled and sat on the edge of his desk. "I thought I'd surprise you. The staff speak highly of you." He shrugged. "I'm doing my best, but it never feels enough." Margaret narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" Pascal hesitated. Then his voice came quietly. "It's Dad. No matter what I do, he still looks at Christian like he's the one." Margaret folded her arms. "So, he still hasn't changed?" "No. He trusts him with everything. The finances, the future. Even that private conversation last week, he didn't call me in, only Christian." Margaret let out a breath, her tone sharp. "That man forgets too easily." "I don't know what else to do," Pascal said. "I've worked hard. I've learned. I've proven myself." "And you have," Margaret said, standing up and walking around the desk to him. "You're doing exactly what I told you. You've made yourself visible, strong, reliable. That's how a true son moves." Pascal frowned. "Then why does Dad still keep Christian so close?"